Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us tonight. I really appreciate the time that you've taken to come. We are having a lean in at a special hour because we're joined by two special guests from the UK. So the purpose of tonight's lean in is to explore some of the themes and concepts in our newly released report, Stronger Insights for Stronger Practices, which was inspired by our two colleagues from the UK that are with us this evening and proudly supported by our team at Lysart. We're really fortunate to have such passionate partners that invest and genuinely partner with us to deliver great outcomes to the members like this. So what I'm going to run through this evening is I'll just quickly talk about the flow for the evening. We will first hear a couple of words from Matt. Then I would like to take us through just some highlights of the report. If you look in the chat box, I've included a hyperlink to this. Many of you would have received this already. If you haven't, after the conversation, you're welcome to go through it in a lot more detail. I'll run through the highlights, and then we're going to leverage and learn more about Linda and Nigel, who are joining us from the UK. We'll learn about their experience in both of their roles, both with Reba, but I'm sure that Nigel will be drawing upon his role at Hawkins Brown. And after that, we will go through some questions from the audience. So as we're talking, in the usual way that we run the lean-ins, I would like you to put your questions into the chat box. Please remember the purpose of this report and this body of work is really to strengthen the practice of architecture and the relationships that we have with our clients. So when you hear these conversations, be mindful that's the spirit that we're working in and what we're trying to achieve. And we'd really like everybody to buy into the vision and see how you can use this information to further your day-to-day engagements with clients and develop your firm. And while you have this opportunity, get the conversation started with two individuals that have been leading a very brave and fantastic body of work for quite some time now over at Reba. So I'm going to hand over to Matt now, who will say a couple of words just by way of introduction. Matt is the National Manager of Sales, Marketing and Innovation at Lysart. He's in the free world of Australia right now. He is in Adelaide. Don't be too jealous, everybody that's there. Matt, I'm going to hand over to you. I'd love to hear from yourself this evening.
Yeah, fantastic. Thanks, Alexia. And good afternoon and good morning to everyone. It's my absolute pleasure and honour, actually, to welcome everyone to this national launch and lean-in event of the Stronger Insights for Stronger Practices client feedback report. I'd like to personally commend the AIA for this great initiative. While we know that every practice values its clients and aims for collaborative and productive working relationships, I think the survey results deliver a level of insight that's rarely directly provided by our customers. That's often my experience. And I also believe it can provide a valuable opportunity for us to reflect on further education, training, how we resource process improvement in that architect-client relationship. Closer to home, Lysart is really committed to our partnership with the AIA. And in this, our 100-year anniversary of manufacturing in Australia, we're certainly using this milestone to emphasise and remind ourselves of the need to continue to strive for improved levels of advocacy from our customers and creating lifetime value as participants in our industry. The Stronger Insights for Stronger Practices report, I think, is a meaningful way in which Lysart can continue our close connection with the architectural profession and in some way support the progressive approaches in design, process and project delivery that your profession is so well known for. So I'm so very pleased to have worked in the building and construction industry my entire professional life, and it's always given me the opportunity to learn and thrive. So thank you for this opportunity to share in a learning by supporting the initiative. The work that's done by the architectural profession is so profoundly impactful in the way that we live and how we also shape our future, that it's personally a real thrill for me to continue to be a very small part of it. So I wish you a great discussion, and thank you for the opportunity of being involved. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Now I'm going to bring up a slide deck so everyone can just wait with me for just one moment. So I'm just going to rewind a little bit. I saw a fantastic report that I mentioned earlier. I've also inserted a link to it in the chat box, which was produced by Reba. And through another lean in, actually, I was introduced to Nigel because our speaker, Mark Farmer, had highlighted how innovative Nigel and his practice were. Through that discussion, I learned that Nigel was involved in and was chair of the committee that headed up this work. He introduced me to Linda. So we're coming full circle here. And Linda is probably one of the most collaborative, spirited people that I've ever met. First call, she said, "This is great, happy to help, would love for you to continue this body of work in Australia." Linda sent us background notes that her committee had used to put together their report in the UK. She told me where the committee was going with all the rest of their work, which we'll discuss as the session progresses today. And if it wasn't for that spirit of collaboration, we wouldn't have these fantastic insights that we have now. And I think that that is really important, that we recognise that this work has been built off of international expertise and international collaboration. Okay, we're not going to go to full screen because that seems to not be working. So as you've seen, the report is called Stronger Insights to Stronger Practices. We have a quote from Matt, which I'll skip past, but I will, because Matt's spoken, but I will mention the one from Julia. So for those of you that don't know, Julia is our CEO. She is overseas at this minute, so couldn't join us this evening. She's on some leave, personal leave. She said that growth comes from the ability to foster a culture of continual improvement. However, practice is reporting hesitancy from clients in providing robust feedback. In facilitating this body of work on behalf of the profession, we are able to bypass this concern. This is actually a concern that has been risen to me both when I've worked in practice and at the Institute, and every other member body that I have been employed by. These conversations are hard to facilitate. They're also hard to take in some of the information. Sometimes we don't want to receive all of the feedback that we get, but it is an important part of growth. I have heard many stories from consultants that have been paid high fees for putting together feedback reports. The reports have led to outcomes that probably people didn't want to have to explore, and they've ended up in a top drawer and haven't actually been acted upon. And that is what holds practices back. We need to make sure that that doesn't happen and that we lean into feedback. That doesn't mean that we need to take it all on board, that we will, but we will lead into it as best as possible. So I want to talk to you a bit about the client respondent type. You can see we worked quite hard to get a mixture of clients in the room. So, and we looked at working across the value chain. So, and different methods of procurement. So you can see here who has responded to the report. You can also see the sectors that they're working in. Interestingly, I have produced another report that will be released in the next few weeks. And what we're seeing is all sectors except for build to rent and commercial, we've had a decrease in slowdown in work, but in build to rent and commercial, we've seen an increase in work. So that's something that's interesting to look at over the last 12 months as we're all impacted by COVID. Here I want you to go through this and dissect it to yourself to be able to really take the insights from the report. The report is split into multiple different sections, and we've started off by exploring selection criteria and service expectations. As mentioned before, a lot of this is modelled off the great work done by Reba in the UK. Something that was very interesting that came out in this report was the top factor of importance for clients when looking to appoint an architectural practice was resourcing. And I haven't seen that in many documents where people are putting together their tender proposals. I think it's a really important thing to talk about with your clients and to have honest, frank conversations with, but also to be looking at how you can address resourcing to maintain a client through strategic partnerships with non-competitive firms. There is some strength in there it's actually astounding. That sits above track record in sector experience. So I think that's something that really stood out to me when I look at what clients are saying is important for them when they're appointing an architectural practice. Some of the other insights that really stood out to me from this report was that other comments around selection criteria. So really, you'll see at the back of the report, we've got, so the front of the report is dissected into producing raw data, which you can pull from yourselves and garner some insights from just by reading them. Running an architectural practice, you wouldn't need too much analysis to be able to pick out a lot from what's provided simply in the data. However, to get a further body of insight and analysis, at the back of the report, we've created 5 key themes, and you can read into those themes. And what stood out the most, and we're looking at selection criteria, was the importance of strong communication and collaboration. And I think there's a big skill to strong communication and collaboration, which is often assumed that we are all doing a great job of it, and not often enough are we actually asking our clients, are we communicating in a way that's meaningful for you? Is this the right information? Is it timely? So that's something that really stood out when we looked at the report. This is something that the writer of the report didn't highlight it, but when I went back to assess the data, this stood out to me, and I know that this insight is very important, and we're all quite passionate about ensuring that our projects meet their objectives, but also that our clients are acting ethically. And particularly when we look at sustainability, this is the shared challenge that we all carry and we all want to contribute to. So I found this insight to be actually quite meaningful. I think that what we need to think about when we look at this, 60% of survey respondents expect and value that architects will act ethically and challenge a client if project objectives are not maintained. This is a fine line, and each of you will know how to manage it with your clients. But what this is saying is open the conversation. If you feel that the project is going off course, feel comfortable in challenging your client to make sure that wherever possible, you can re-steer the project to stay on objectives. I remember one time I had a fantastic conversation with a gentleman that was employed by Arup at the time. And I believe he is now with Woods Bagot. And he said to me, my key strength he's had a business development role. And he said, my key strength isn't business development at Arup. My key strength is keeping clients on track and preventing value engineering. And the way that he did that, the key thing that he said was the most important mechanism for keeping people on track was at the beginning of a project, bringing everybody together, making them eyeball one another in a meeting and all agree about the shared objectives, and that they would each do whatever possible to keep the project on course with the aspirations, particularly sustainability aspirations, that the project had initially been launched to market with. I found that to be quite brave, but and actually quite simple. And it's sometimes that simple human connection and challenging one another that can be, makes all the difference in getting an outcome. We looked into value proposition. This is a big conversation. What is the value that an architect will bring? And it will change by firm to firm. And I believe that it's a broader conversation which we need to have possibly another 5 lean-ins on, because the value proposition of our architecture is changing and architects is changing. There is a global movement, which I am seeing, which really looks at what is the problem that an architect will solve, an architectural practice is solving. And that's a big discussion around value proposition. For this slide, what I wanted to highlight were areas of improvement as highlighted by clients. So when we look at, I don't think these are probably too much of a surprise, but key insights for areas of improvement were around creating and buildings that were easy to operate and maintain, demonstrating the impact of design on the end users and local communities, and risk reduction and delivery. So I think that all ties back to really buildability and what knowledge we're getting and what connection we have to what's happening on site. But further to that, post-occupancy evaluation and measurement. And these are things which I know key players around the industry now and also clients are looking to close in on investing R&D in. So they weren't surprises to me when I saw these as areas of improvement. And I think that there's also a body of work that we could be doing to highlight what is happening in this space and what insights can we share to help the profession grow. This is an interesting thing. What are the issues that are keeping your clients up at night? The top 3 issues were keeping up with market conditions, given what we're all facing is probably not too much of a surprise. Then, as mentioned before, our shared challenge of climate change and the demand for sustainable design. And one thing that really stood out to me was there's an appetite, but also a concern to learn more about modern methods of construction. That is fascinating and I think presents a lot of opportunity, potentially also in addressing issues around sustainability. And I'm sure Nigel will have some comments about that. So it's interesting that clients have shown interest in climate change, but what we all see is what was mentioned before: value engineering prevents projects from getting an outcome. And I think one of the questions that we don't ask is what information will help your organization so besides being challenged, but what actual data and information do you need to invest in sustainable design? So we actually ask clients what they would like to help them advocate internally in conversation, and then on sell their project for having sustainable design incorporated. But just to simply make a financial decision, that's something that we need to be able to provide to our clients. And you can see the information that they've provided for us. When looking at the data and evidence requested by clients to inform investment in sustainable design, they would like a demonstration of greater operational efficiencies, demonstration of reduction of energy and usage costs. This all comes down to a lot of this comes down to post-occupancy measurement. Demonstration of increase in asset value, brand benefits through the use of Green Star and ESD credentials. This will move into wellness. Wellness sits a little bit lower in the charts than I would like to see it. You can see at 23% information relating to staff retention and reduced sick leave benefits. And quite interestingly, bottom of the chart was data on higher premiums achieved for rental income. So for those of you with build to rent clients, that's something that doesn't really stand out. What build to rent clients will be looking for, or anyone that's owning and operating, is really understanding how the sustainable design will hit their own bottom line in a bigger impact, which they see to be in their operational and energy usage costs. These are other factors of importance, which are really the critical areas I mentioned before around internal persuasion and internal advocacy for investing in sustainable design. I won't run you through all of them, just to be efficient with time. This is a big challenge when we move across. So as the report continues, there's lots of key themes that will lead back to investment in R&D. And there are firms, last week we had, this feels like an accidental promotion for Arup, but it's not, I promise. We had Arup head of insights and research speak last week in a lean in, and she shared their model and how they make decisions around investment in R&D, but also use R&D as a tool to incentivize and keep staff engaged with the organisation. She also talked about any commercial opportunity moving forward in R&D and what they see to be true R&D versus something that qualifies their skills, and what's true IP versus actually just qualifying their skills. And there's a lot of grey awareness around this in the market. So I think when you read through the report, you'll see people are interested in exploring further. They're also looking for, there's comments in the report which lean to the onus being on practices. I think that there are ways that this can be addressed without it necessarily having large financial burden. And then I think there needs to be further exploration for firms in, well, what is the worthwhile investment for us? And are we solving a problem project to project, or are we looking to use systems thinking to go one step above and really ask ourselves, what are the challenges that we're trying to solve? Moving through this to speed through it a little bit quicker, you can see we've asked clients what education they would like from the profession. Modern methods of construction and technology are the top areas that they would like more information on. So for those of you that are exploring and emerging technologies, share that with your clients. They're very interested, and the Institute will be looking at ways that we can facilitate these conversations to assist opening discourse around what could be happening in the market and what opportunities there are. Okay, so I am going to leave it at that and come back to our panelists. This evening, we have with us Linda Stevens and Nigel. Nigel, how do I pronounce your surname?
It's Osteen.
Osteen, thank you. I've never had to say it before, so thank you for that.
Well, it's an unusual name.
What's the origins?
Oh gosh, it was a European name that was anglicised quite badly. So back in the 19th century.
Oh, okay. Well, I will just by way of background, just provide just a highlight of the two of you in your experience and your background. So Nigel was a partner of Horskin & Brown. He's an architectural practice of around 300 people with studios in London, Manchester, Edinburgh, Dublin and Los Angeles. That's an amazing mix there, isn't it? I've actually sat down with Nigel and one of his team members and learnt more about their firm, and they are very progressive. And Nigel is very well known in the innovation/modern methods of construction space, which he might explain in a little bit more detail. Nigel leads a specialist design studio at Hawkins & Brown, which supports projects in technical design, BIM, DFMA, computational design, programming, commercial issues and quality assurance. He is a member of the REBA Practice and Profession Committee and chair of REBA Client Liaison Group, which provides an interface between the Institute and client organisations. Linda Stevens is a marketing communications professional with 30 years of experience in the property and construction sector. She joined Reba as the head of client services in 2013. Wow, that's amazing, Linda. Having run her own PR and marketing agency for 15 years, following as a year of head of communications at Lewisham Homes. Linda is responsible for the Reba Client Services team, delivering best practice competition management services, client referral services, and the online fund and architect service. She leads a program which promotes architects to clients through various client shows with the Work with an Architect social media campaign. She's responsible for the Reba Clients Market Research Initiative set up in 2013 to gather client feedback on behalf of the profession. So what I would like to do now is just ask the two of you some questions, because you've both been engaged in this space for quite some time. The first thing I would like to ask is, start off with Linda, if that's okay. Are you able to just talk to us and share some insights beyond my bio readout of the client liaison group? What's the role of this group within your organisation? And how has it helped the profession in the time that you've been running it so far?
Thanks, Alexia. Good evening, everybody. It's lovely to be talking to you from the UK. First of all, I'd like to say congratulations on the report. I think you've done a remarkable job in a very short time frame. Nigel and I have worked with each other for 8 years, as you said in my biog. It's no coincidence that the Client Liaison Group started 8 years ago and I arrived at the RIBA 8 years ago. One of the functions of my role was to help Nigel and a group of very client-orientated architects actually launch the RIBA for Clients initiative. And at the time, I think they weren't sure what the RIBA for Clients initiative was going to include in detail, but the first thing they really wanted to do was ask clients how architects could add more value. So we started in 2013, we've been going for 8 years, and our first project was a series of roundtables aimed at 15 different client sectors, asking clients to come to us at the RIBA for, it was quite a luxury invitation. We actually invited them to come to the RIBA for dinner and tell us how architects could add more value. And we were very happy, but a little bit surprised that they were very happy to come to the RIBA. They felt very privileged that we'd asked their opinions, and they were very happy to give us feedback. And what followed on from there was the publication of the findings in what we describe as the Orange Report. I'm not sure whether you're sharing links to our publications, Alexia, but I'm happy to put a little summary of our links together. Internally, I think we had a bit of a challenge at that point because their feedback wasn't all positive, and we felt very strongly, as you have in your report, that we needed to share the positive and the not so positive so that it became a learning exercise, not just a promotional exercise. We also knew that we needed to keep going with it. It wasn't a one-off initiative. So we've done 4 different projects over the 8 years, loosely timed around the new presidents coming in. So, you know, each had a 2-year time frame, let's say. That was the first. We went on to do an online client survey and polled around 1,000 clients, including domestic clients, which we hadn't been able to engage with in that first series of roundtables, contractor clients and other types of clients. And the contractor clients told us some pretty hard truths, really, which is what prompted our third initiative, which was the quality initiative, building in quality initiative. And indeed the development of a quality tracker, which actually relates to your ethics and value 60% stat. We're dealing with the same sort of issues, really. It's not a surprise, but so the third initiative was the quality initiative. And most recently, we've done another client survey. It's another satisfaction survey, how architects can improve their services. And we published that at the beginning of this year. And we're just thinking about our 5th project now that will probably revolve around sustainability, investment in sustainability. So again, it touches on the kind of questions you've asked recently of your client group. It's been an amazing 8 years. It's gone very quickly. And this particular element of my job certainly is something I'm very, very proud of. Nigel and the colleagues that I've worked with within that group for 8 years are very committed to what we're doing. The clients have changed a little bit over the 8 years. We're now working with a group of 4 clients that are helping us with initiatives going forward. And I hope that gives you an idea of where we've come from.
I have to unmute myself. Apologies, everybody. I appreciate that, Linda. Thank you so much. And as I mentioned before, Linda has been fantastic since the first meeting, been so collaborative. And this is something where I have previously worked in the US, and the issues are global. There's these themes, they don't change, which is just astounding. Nigel's nodding furiously. It's amazing, isn't it? It really is. And you've got a global practice, so you're seeing that with where you're in the markets that you're operating in. So I think, yeah, they are. It's healthy for us to collaborate on this, because it also eases a little bit of the burden. Oh, you're having the same problem.
Just on the point of collaboration, we chose very early on to make sure that we were partnering with contractor clients and the RICS client body in preparation of the kind of questions that we were coming up with. So almost all of the work that we've done so far has been in partnership with the RICS and the CIOB, Chartered Institute of Building, which is why I think we were able to shape the right sort of questions.
Yeah, I think that's also why we were able to fast track our work and move through this quite quickly, because we had a really great starting point. And then from that, the way that we adapted our questions was to go out to our members and ask them what else, building on what we had, what else they would like us to cover. And so we're very fortunate that you've done that work. My next question is for Nigel. Nigel, in your mind, what are the most notable projects that the group has undertaken? So in your reflection of your time chairing the committee and being on the committee?
Yeah, well, thanks. So I think Linda outlined sort of the principal ones, but I was going to say, I mean, first of all, my congratulations. I think you've done a brilliant report, and it's great to see this, going, this is sort of, as you say, these issues are global ones, Alexia, and, they're not just UK ones, they're not just Australian ones, they are issues for all architects. So it's great that we share these things, because I think we all benefit from doing that. And I think it's also, one thing I was going to say before I get going was, you mentioned this at the start, but this came about from Mark Farmer introducing me to you to talk about offsite, which I think we should touch on, because I think it's really part of this, the whole sort of modular offsite MMC thing. So I just wanted to, something which I find I'm telling a lot of my younger colleagues now is the importance of networking. It's so important to what we do, and we gain so much more. And so it's all about collaboration. So I just really wanted to reinforce that. I think it was great the way this sort of came about through that slightly serendipitous route. But it was great to see the outcome. I was going to say, so Linda talked about the fact that we started all this about 8 years ago when we set up the client liaison group. And I'm just going to explain, what was behind our thinking. So at that time, we set up the group specifically. We wanted to try and make the RIBA more outward facing. I think all institutes tend to be a little bit introspective and navel gazing, worrying about our fee levels aren't enough and all this sort of thing. But actually, it's so important that we go and sort of look above the horizon, and particularly for all of us, it's to talk to our clients and understand that. So we wanted to help the RIBA and our members to do that. So we wanted to provide a sort of forum where we could hear the views directly from client bodies, because a lot of practices, frankly, can't really afford to undertake that sort of market research. So why not have your institute do it for you? And and great that you've done exactly the same thing. So it's really useful, particularly for smaller practices. Maybe larger practices can manage that financially, but smaller ones is a little bit harder. So I think it's super useful to have that. And then what we also wanted to do at the RIBA was make a sort of vehicle to feed ideas and initiatives from the Institute back to those clients. So it's something of a dialogue that we set up between us and our clients. And then the last thing we wanted to do was to identify what are the sort of tools and skills that architects need to improve their service to clients. So as Linda said, we started off with those round tables, and I see there's a question in the chat, so I may just answer that for you. It's saying how many clients were invited to the initial dinner event and what stage of the project involvement with their architects were the client's question. Well, we stipulated that, I mean, at that stage, it was fairly broad, and we just wanted to talk to a range of clients. So we set them up by groups. So the first group we had in were a group of contractors. And, you know, I guess it's probably similar in Australia, but the relationship between architect and contractor can be a difficult one, but it's so important that we work more collaboratively, that we're working together. And you know, and again, I'm sure this is the same in Australia, that contractors are quite a big client group for architects, certainly in the UK through the design and build route. So you know, we need to do this, and if we want to improve the outcomes of our building, we've got to frankly get on. So we asked them in first, then we asked house builders in the UK. We asked different clients by sector type to try and get a sense of what their different views were. But when we put it all together, and that report that Linda talked about, client and architect, we found that a lot of the issues were cross-cutting across all of those sectors. And we listed out 5 issues in that report that we felt were the key ones, which we found. And, you know, not surprisingly, a lot of them sort of resonate through your report, and indeed have resonated through the other surveys we've done. So so maybe we can pick up on some of those later on, but there are definitely issues that come through. And I think all of the work that we have done has had interesting outcomes, and we've tried to change each time we've done a program. And Linda said we've sort of done roughly something new every couple of years, broadly in line with a new president coming into the RIBA. And the one that we're about to take up in the coming period is going to be revolving around sustainability, because, you know, we know that is the big issue that we all have to deal with. But we don't want to just do it as architects thinking we know everything. We want to ask our clients, what do you think is important about this issue? And that's the key thing. It's not just assuming we know what we're doing. It's not making assumptions. It's listening to what the clients say, and it's making sure that we take on board what they're saying, and that we use that information in delivering the service we provide to them. So I think that's been a key part of it, making sure that we listen and that we act on that listening, and we don't sort of come across as being the people that know it all. You know, we've spent years studying, so we know it all. Actually, we really can learn a lot from our clients around these sort of issues, and that's what's been important for this.
Thank you, Nigel. Linda,
Alexia, can I just answer the question in the chat about the number of clients that we engaged with in that early project, because it's a quick answer really. We had 15 round tables and about 25 clients attending each round table. We also organised a launch event for the report itself, and we developed a database over that project of around 500-600 clients, engaged clients. And that forms our core database as we hold it now. So although each roundtable was limited to 25 clients, 15 of them plus the launch event gave us a core database of about 500-600.
Thank you, Linda.
And actually, just to jump in there as well, if I can, Alexia, quickly, because this is a resource that you can look at over there. We got a lot of them to sit down in front of a camera and film them. And it's on YouTube. If you search RIBA for clients, I think on YouTube, there's a whole load of them. Now, okay, they're UK clients, but as we've said, these matters are global. Some really useful feedback we got directly from clients there. So as well as the reports, and obviously it's a bit easier to sit down in front of a bit of video. So I'd recommend people that are tuning in today to just have a look on that on YouTube and have a look, because there's some really excellent feedback that I've certainly valued from in my practice, to listen to what they're saying and to try and take account of that. So do take a look at that.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. I was unaware of that, so I'm excited to go and have a look and share that with everybody. I think if the two of you are all right with it, I might go a little bit off script and just ask, we'll start off with Linda and then go to Nigel. I'm interested just in your general impressions, looking at what we've found and the report that we've written up with your experience. What are the key issues that you see that are shared, and what are your perspectives on these issues?
I think I'm going to ask you to give that question to Nigel, because I think that's part of his usual presentation.
Okay, Nigel.
Okay, well, look, I think as we touched on earlier, I think there are sort of common issues. So I noted that I think it was something like 80% of clients were, in your report, were saying they don't generally ask architectural practices to be the project manager. They would appoint a separate project manager. And we're pretty much the same here. I mean, architects don't, on the whole, want to undertake project management, but it was when you sort of dug deeper into that, there was a sense that the architects, I mean, again, this is something, you know, architects used to project manage, and we used to prepare costing, but we decided that we didn't want to do that anymore. We wanted to focus on the high-end design stuff. Well, that's fine, but actually we've ended up with project managers and quantity surveyors taking significant parts of our workload. And I think in doing that, and through design and build procurement, where the contractor is actually responsible for a lot of the detailed design, we've slightly lost some of those skills. And I think this was coming out in the survey. So one of the big findings that we had, probably the big finding, I mean, a whole range of things, and it's all interesting, but the big thing that I've always taken away is that clients think that we are, as a profession, we're great designers. I mean, we should be. We spend long enough learning how to do it, and then a lifetime, of course, you know, building on that. But they generally think, you know, if you were to summarize, they think we're great designers, that we can understand how to put a brief together and respond to that and produce great outcomes in terms of building design. But what they want us to focus on is that sort of project management side of things, the sort of fiduciary duty we have to manage the cost of the building. Now, they're not saying with the cost that we have to cost it, because we work with quantity surveyors and cost consultants, but they want us to understand and play our part in designing to cost, for example, and they didn't think we were always doing that. I suppose one thing to say here is there's a lot of generalizations in this. It's a survey, so I find myself as an architect looking at some of this and going, hang on a minute, I think about cost when I'm designing a building, but two things. One, this is a general perception, and it's a perception of our profession. So we've got to overcome that, regardless of whether we feel individually that it applies to us. So I think, you know, we need to bear that in mind. So it's really about project management, and that leads into the whole, and it wasn't just what project managers and, you know, quantity surveyors do. It's about managing the project on their behalf. It's sort of owning it for them. It's about things like communicating with the rest of the design team in the right way. So it's leading the team in the right way. It's not sort of being a bit didactic and saying, you know, this is the way it's going to go. It's working collaboratively, as we talked about before. So it's really about an attitude, I suppose. And I think you could perhaps think of it as sort of professionalism in a way. I think we all sort of know what we mean when we say we need to be professional. And you touched on this, I think, in the survey, revealing how clients actually want us to remind them of some of the sort of social duties and issues that we have to come. And sometimes we might be reluctant to do that. We might think, well, I don't want to trouble them about that, because, you know, they're keen on getting the project done on time and on budget and so on. But actually, a lot of clients, particularly the bigger institutional clients, really do care, and increasingly they care about these things, and their shareholders are starting to tell them they need to care about more of these things. So we've got to get a deeper understanding of those sort of issues from a client's point of view. Another issue that came out from clients was, it's okay, you understand about buildings, but what you need to do is get under the skin of our businesses rather more. And again, I think, you know, these are sort of common issues. So it's understanding what's keeping them awake at night. And it's interesting that you've got questions about that, because I think that's so important. They want us to be their partners. They want us to sit with them and own the building with them in that way. And it's only by understanding what's keeping them up at night that we'll be able to do that. So I think those are the sort of issues that I've taken away from a lot of these, that, you know, you just try to keep in the back of your mind when you're working. This is a sort of attitude, really, as I say, it's sort of underlying professionalism. It's a sort of attitude that we have about how we work and how we collaborate with people.
Thank you, appreciate that. Okay, I think what would be interesting is, Nigel, I'd be interested to know, sorry to come back to you straight away, you're in the hot seat, but how has your engagement in this committee and also the data that's been pulled through these bodies of work in this report influenced not just yourself, but your colleagues in your practice? What have you seen? And have you observed some challenges initially bringing people, I guess, to have a seat at the table and really engage with this information? Or have you seen people embrace it with open arms?
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, as you said, we're a large practice, so you know, it's probably hard to influence uniformly across a large practice, much as I try to. But actually, we've always been at the heart quite a collaborative practice. So I was sort of starting on the front foot from my point of view there. So I think that was sort of fine. We do project completion reviews on all of our projects, or the key ones certainly, where we sit down, get the project team together. We ask ourselves questions: how did it go? How can we learn and do things better? So that sort of thing was happening. But I think it's useful to have this sort of data to go to my colleagues, my fellow partners, and say, look, how important this is. It's not just me telling you this, but look, here's some real life data from real life clients who are saying they think this is important. And one of the big things from the report was that clients do want us to understand how our buildings are performing and understand how things have worked in the past, so that we can improve in the future. One of the big things I always bang on about here is that we have, and this is a global issue, that construction industry has had flatlining productivity for too long. If you look at us compared to the manufacturing industry, and this is going to tie into the MMC discussion in a moment, but if you look at how manufacturing has improved productivity over, I don't know, the last 25 years, there's a sort of steady increase in productivity. Construction, unfortunately, is pretty much flatlined. And I think that's partly because we haven't gone about things in the right way. We haven't invested enough in how we can make continuous improvement. Whereas in manufacturing, it's sort of part of their ethos. And part of that is to understand what you did before and how can you do it better next time. And we don't do it, I think, in the construction industry, because the project finishes, the team splits up, we go off to the four corners of the earth to do the next project, and we don't take the time. It's so important as well with the sustainability agenda, because we've got to look at post-occupancy evaluation of the buildings, understand how they're performing and so on. But also it's about how the project itself has gone in all sorts of other ways. So one of the big strong findings that we found was feedback is really important. And clients, in the second online survey we did, clients were saying that where there was feedback as the project was finished, they were giving higher levels of satisfaction. So it's quite an interesting little analogy that where they got the opportunity to give feedback and they could sense that we were taking care of that, they got higher levels of satisfaction. Sometimes we're a bit reluctant to do that because we don't want to hear the bad stories of, you know, projects. Usually something hasn't gone right. So you know, you think, well, I'm not going to ask them how it went, because they'll only bring up that point where we didn't issue the drawings quite on the right time or whatever. And that led to other things. So, but one of the strong messages is that we do need to ask our clients for feedback. It's what happens in manufacturing, and I think it's why the manufacturing industry on the whole has progressed more than the construction industry. We've got to get our minds around this. So in our practice, you know, we do try to get into the habit of asking as you go along. Don't just wait until the end and then hear the bad news stories. Ask as it's going, and then if things come up that are maybe causing a difficulty, well, you can deal with it, and you know, and everyone can work on happily. So yeah, I think in terms of Hawkins Brown, you know, I think it's just helped to drive home the messages about collaboration, about getting feedback in an ongoing way, and about understanding how a project went and what could be done better on the next project, and making sure that you have a system that you can feed that into the next project you do, and that you have this sort of continuity from one project to another project. So I think that's probably the biggest thing that we've taken away from this, and that we try and do. I wouldn't say that we're perfect at it by any means, but you know, it's an ongoing, it's an evolving thing, and you keep trying to deliver it. So just to sort of finish off that bit, so that's sort of, it's interesting that you touched in your report on the whole MMC piece there, and you know, and the fact that you and I first met through talking about that. And clients are, and I think this is similar in Australia from what I understand, but certainly in the UK, clients are increasingly interested in modern methods of construction for all sorts of reasons. You know, we've got labour shortages coming up because, you know, for all sorts of reasons, partly because of Brexit for us, but also just the demographic that the construction industry is getting older and younger people aren't coming in to replace people who are retiring. So we do have an issue. And so clients are getting more interested in this. So we need to make sure that we can give them the right advice on that. So just a little plug here. I've just finished a report with the RIBA, which is we've got we use the plan of work, which I guess you know about. The RIBA plan of work takes us through work stages, and we've got a new overlay to that, which is for DFMA, Design for Manufacture and Assembly, and that's coming out in a couple of weeks time, and it'll be freely available, you know, because it's downloadable online. So do look out for that, because I think these issues are global. So as architects, we've got to understand what's on our clients' minds. Modern methods of construction, manufacturing processes is one of those. We need to make sure that we're up to speed with all that and can give them suitable advice. So yeah, there's a few things. I mean, you know, there are loads of things we've learned, but I think they're the headline ones.
Thank you, I appreciate that. What I really liked about your response then is you've just echoed key themes in I gave a really short, well, it was longer than I would have liked, but I highlighted just a couple of key insights in your report, which, you know, led to the importance and the big questions around R&D, value proposition generally, post-occupancy, the importance to move towards a greater culture of post-occupancy evaluation, where we're going with MMC, the challenges around, I think we've got somebody that needs to leave. Thank you, Michael. Sustainability, these are global challenges. We're all facing the same issues, and there are key themes. So we can collaborate to help solve them together, which is very exciting. I would like to hear a little bit more about the MMC work, if that's okay, Nigel, and the connection to where you're at and how maybe your work in modern methods of construction has helped you to work closer with clients. That would be, I think, really important. It is a privilege. Not every firm gets to invest and learn as much as they would like and play with modern methods of construction, but I think when you see a vision, you find alternative ways to get the outcome.
Well, it's something which occupies a good part of my time now. Making sure that we as a practice understand it as fully as we can across everyone. All the architects need to have a basic understanding, so that, as I say, we can talk to clients about this. We're quite lucky in the UK, the government is promoting it quite hard. So, you know, people like Mark Farmer have been putting together, helping us to categorize the MMC systems. These things are global. We can all use the same language. It'd be great if we start doing that. So we all talk about the MMC categories 1 through to 7. So yeah, I just think it's really important for the future of our industry. I think we do have some pretty big challenges ahead of us in terms of, well, I talked about productivity, obviously sustainability, and making sure that we bring new entrants into our industry. It is seen as, in some places, construction is seen as not the first choice when you're deciding what work you want to do in your career. And we need to try and change our industry so that it does that. And that means modernizing it and using not just modern methods of construction, but digital technology as well. So as I say, I'm really interested and spend a lot of time on MMC, but it's also what supports that, which is digital technology. And there's another whole session I think we could do on digital technology, because it's so important for us as architects to come to grips. And I'm not just talking about BIM, I'm talking about really computational design in the broader sense, and how we can get to it as architects. So so I think that's the sort of thing which works. It is, you know, it's such a big topic to cover, and I know that we're probably running a bit short of time. So I think let's maybe organise another one for MMC. I mean, you've talked to Mark Farmer already, but I think there's so much to talk about, and it's such a fascinating subject, and I think super important for our profession as well.
Yeah, I'd love to. And we've got some interest in the chat box. I asked the question. you'd be interested to know that I am close to releasing another report, which is on design technology. And we've asked the profession where they're investing in R&D, exploratory areas in modern methods of construction or computational design. We've also asked them what their clients are asking them for and what they're actually marketing. There's a lot of disconnect, which is just like, I'm very interested to share this with you and get your impressions on it. So yes, I think that would be a great idea. Linda, I think we might close off with just hearing a little bit more from yourself, if that's okay. What do you think in the bigger picture in how this broader body of work has repositioned REBA? My impressions is that it's probably done a lot of work for your organisation holistically in being able to have, a seat at the table and having more meaningful conversations with clients. It probably expands into all of your advocacy, your policy work. Is that correct assumption?
Well, I think the RIBA does a lot of good work and is probably having influence on certain groups, including clients, in all sorts of different ways. I think my overarching response would be, because we've kept going with this, the messages are consistent over a longer period of time. So in 8 years, we've basically been saying publicly, quality is important. Architects are all about improving service as well as skills. The RIBA is a collaborative body. All of these are consistent messages that we began with 8 years ago. So I think keep going with it is what I would certainly recommend in terms of your report. I think we've definitely engaged directly with clients. That's been really, really helpful with those clients that have got involved in the work, but we're being seen to engage with clients, which I think goes down very well with the wider client body. We also know that our work has prompted many of our practices to use our survey as a benchmark to survey their own clients, and that can only be a good thing. So there's sort of lots of direct and indirect links that we've generated and encouraged through the work that we've done. We can't measure it because it's out there, but the fact that we're keeping going with it is a clear indication that there is value in what we've done.
Thank you, appreciate that. Now, Nigel and Linda, one more question for yourselves. If you two were in the driver's seat leading this body of work in Australia, what would be the next thing that you would see to come to market and see us investing in to help our members in this area?
Who's going first, Linda?
Big question. A lot of pressure.
You can go first,
well,
Nigel.
I think it's okay. Well, I think the answer, Alexia, is to just keep going, actually. So when we started this 8 years ago, we were very clear that this wasn't, Linda mentioned this wasn't one-off piece of work that we were doing. Actually, we wanted to change the way that the RIBA worked. And I think it would be exactly the same for the AIA. So it's thinking about setting this up as just the start of a long journey to keep in touch with clients and make sure that, because things change over time. So making sure that you're understanding what are the issues that are keeping them up at night and understanding that. So I think my answer is, what would I do? I'd do another one. Leave it for a bit of time. You need to, the first thing you've got to do is promote this so that as many people as possible see it and get benefit from it. As many of the members understand it, and then that critical thing of trying to persuade them to change the way they do things, to to take account of it. It's no good just reading it going, oh yes, that's a good idea. You've got to actually change the way you do it. I think on that, feedback is probably my big one. Get feedback from your clients. I think that's probably the easiest thing to do, and it shows, our data, and I think yours as well, shows that clients have higher levels of satisfaction if you do that. So what's not to like about that? So yeah, just keep doing it. Promote this now. Make sure as many people understand it. Try and persuade the members of the AIA to change the way they do things. to follow the advice you're getting from the clients. And then maybe in another couple of years' time or so, do another one. You might find it slightly different. We certainly have. We found there are different drivers for what we've been doing. So we haven't just repeated the same one. We've tried something different. It makes it a bit more interesting for us to do something different as well. But so we've done something slightly different and see the results. And it's a never-ending process. You've just got to keep going and going and going.
Just to add to that, I think when we launched the online client survey, which is the second project, we had it in mind to run the same survey every now and then in order to make a comparison. And the world has changed so dramatically since 2015, 2016, that it wouldn't be possible to ask the same sort of questions. But it would be nice to have some kind of measure of improvement in an ideal world. That's pretty ambitious, but in an ideal world, I think some measure of improvement would be really helpful.
Thank you, Linda. Thank you, Nigel. And thank you to Matt for the fantastic introduction and for your support. This is really meaningful for us. We've already had our state managers earmark a lot of potential new projects that could come from this and further areas of exploration, which is great. And just while we've actually been on the call today, we've had 300 downloads of the report, which is really exciting. But I think one of the most important things that we've been left with is some instruction for everybody that's here. Take this document and use it to facilitate a conversation with your peers inside your firm and then with your clients. That's what this has been created for, is the beginning of a conversation to help your firm. So please take advantage of that. All right, everybody, thank you so much. We will be a simple set of questions to ask. Yes, Philip, thank you for your comment in the chat box. I have somebody working on that for you. So
I was going to say, Alexia, we can share you the questions that there were about 8 questions that we found were really pertinent. So we can share those with you, and that would be ideal for Philip to ask his clients, I think. So we'll do that.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. And Nigel, I will be in touch about our next session. This could become a regular thing. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.